Can you describe in your words your style of defense?
Organized chaos, I guess. We kind of know what we're doing, but if it looks a little chaotic out there, that's probably the right mentality that we have. There's a lot of not tons of rules, but we trap a lot, but there's a little bit of strategy when we do that, how we do that, why we do that, where we go when we do that. So it's something that's kind of evolved from my playing days. I really do kind of believe it gives us an edge before teams even step out on the court, because when they're preparing during film, you can see it, and it might be a little intimidating sometimes. And coaches even prepare for that during scout. They're going to come at you. They're going to come at you. So that's kind of living in your head before the tip. So I think it's a great, fun style to watch, to play, to coach. So I've really enjoyed teaching defense.
I'm guessing it starts with on ball. Is that right? Or do you start somewhere else?
No, it is on ball defense.
Okay. And so is there anything unique or different in how you teach it?
Through the rest of this podcast, you're probably going to hear some terminology that is unique, and I've come up with some words that have just stuck, I guess, over time. One thing we do with our dig hand on ball is deny the crossover, and I call our dig hand kind of a measuring stick, because you're literally measuring up to the offense, and you want that measuring stick to be extended. So you're really causing a little bit of pressure, but you're also extending a measuring stick so one step doesn't get you beat. So it's applied pressure, but you're still keeping a healthy distance from the offensive player, so there's no blow-bys. So the fastest move in basketball is the crossover. So that's what we're trying to deny with that dig hand. So you have your palm towards the ball, your dig hand's kind of in there, hassling them right kind of in between their knees. You're in a stance. The other hand is really used for kind of mirroring the basketball, trying to get a deflection for a potential pass. So we just do zigzags, and I call it block the ball. We're not stealing it. We're not reaching. You just kind of, you got your dig hand out, and you block the ball. You grab it with two, you give it to your partner. The partner will zig, block the ball, grab it with two, give it to your partner. The other partner will zag, and you'll just do zigzags down the floor with that technique. We do that almost every day. We kind of layer it. So we'll do dig hand steals, then we'll do chest stops. So let's say they don't cross over because you're denying the crossover with your dig hand. They've got to do a spin or a behind the back. So we'll zig and zag again, but you got to turn them. So you've got to get your chest ahead of the ball, around the ball, get a chest stop. And then sometimes where there's contact, we have a terminology. It's called Mickey Mouse. So if you get a chest stop on that zigzag, and there's some contact being made, throw your hands essentially up by your ears. And it looks like Mickey Mouse when you're putting your hands by your ears. You're essentially telling the officials, like, this isn't me. I'm not making the contact. Don't call a foul, but I'm still moving my feet and getting my chest around to get that change of direction. And we say, we go on so many turns, we say 2 dribble max. So I want you to oversell. After that second dribble, I want you to make them change direction. They shouldn't be able to cross over. But if they kind of get tight and in your space and there's a little bit of physicality and contact, keep on turning them with your chest, get your chest and your feet around, and kind of Mickey, throw your hands. So we work on angles a lot. We work on turns a lot. We work on pressure, but smart pressure. You want to know your speed comparatively to the offensive player and judge that based on how tight you can get. And some people can get tighter than others, but we work on that with kids, and we do it often and a lot.
Just to be clear, so you're wanting every 2 dribbles for them to chest Mickey and then go the other direction?
Yeah, in the half court. Now in the zigzags, we'll let them go, cone to cone, and that's kind of spread out. So they might get 4 dribbles in before they're getting to the cone, and we're making that conscious effort to turn them just to work on technique with the dig hand. So we'll get a few dig hand dribbles in there. We'll get our chest around, make them turn Mickey if there's a lot of contact, and then sprint back to get our head. They always say, get your head on the ball. I tell them, get your head ahead of the ball, because we really want to, if your head's on the ball, they can go the same direction however long they want. But if you get your head ahead of the ball, then you're ahead of them, and they're going to either run into you and maybe get a charge, or they have to change direction.
I was supposed to ask you, a couple people told me pool noodles.
Yeah, so a little trick of the trade, we'll have some ready. If you don't extend your measuring stick, a good little trick is to put that pool noodle, use some athletic tape and tape it there. A good trick is to tape it at the elbow so they can't bend it. And then just use that pool noodle as kind of a guide how to, use the measuring stick technique. And it's worked well when kids want to have these alligator arms and guard like this. If you have a pool noodle stuck to your arm, you can't do anything but extend your measuring stick. So that's a little trick we use sometimes. They get a kick out of it.
Can you explain the cue, the pop back, and how you all use that?
Yeah, I've never really liked the term drop step. I think if you drop step, it just kind of opens up a free path for your defense. So we do pop backs, and really your 10 toes are still facing the ball, but if you're feeling too close, or you can feel your measuring stick getting tight instead of extended, all you have to do is literally pop back. So, we're hassling the ball. All I have to yell is a pop back. And they know just to create some space by just popping back. They don't drop step. They don't open up. They just pop back. So we use that technique, kind of pushing off on the balls of our feet and just having that extension all the time. And if they don't have that extension, you'll hear me on the side, pop back, pop back, pop back. They know what that technique looks like. And we do skinnies all the time. A skinny is kind of a slither of the drill in just a part. So if we're struggling with kind of that distance and the time and space needed to control that ball handler, we'll just do a lot of drills on popping back, popping back, popping back. Then we'll go back to the zigzags, and they should have the pop back down by that time. We just did a skinny. We just did a small portion of the drill, and hopefully then the bigger drill will look better because we focused on a small part that we were struggling with.
All right. So do you go 1-on-1 to 2, or do you add 3 or 4 or 5? What's the kind of progression there for teaching this style?
Yeah, we do. We'll do just 1-on-1 zigzags, and then we'll add, I call it the 4-person turn drill. So we're adding another one that's kind of escorting up the court with the ball handler. And they'll do kind of a zig and a zag and then turn on the sideline. So then it's kind of that mentality of we're going to get ahead of the ball, turn the ball, and the next person has to be able to rotate. Then we'll add a third to where there's going to be a trap, and then the third person in the backcourt comes and rotates one pass up. So then we'll add a fourth and do that too. We kind of have a saying, one goes, we all go. So you're always, obviously in the full court, you're going to rotate up the line, really a kind of a level up towards the ball. And the idea is to leave the furthest person open. But that's a breakdown drill too. We start 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's just teaching, and everyone does every single spot. I mean, the post players are going to guard the ball coming down the court too. The perimeter players are going to be in the backcourt with one of the posts in the paint, so they can figure out how to rotate up. That's something that's unique too. You've got to know how it all fits together. You can't just know your own siloed responsibility, because you have responsibilities in rotation to cover anyone you get stuck on.
A couple times now you've mentioned the trapping triggers for trapping. What are they?
You're making me give all my secrets away.
Not all of them, just whatever ones you want to.
Yeah, well, we have some rules. We're going to try to get turns. That's kind of the staple. So when you can see the back of someone's head and they're going to turn into an opportunity, and you're up the line, on the line, and you can be there to trap on the turn, that's big. And it goes into depth of different sections on the floor, how that looks. We've got kind of a red, green, and yellow section on the floor. And that's a lot of detail. When you're so close, you can guard 2. That's kind of a rule. And that might not be like a dead on trap, but it might be, I call it gobble in the gaps. So if you're in the gap and you're playing big and wide and someone's coming at your gap, if you can kind of get your fingertips on it, not a chest stop because that's an easy draw kick, but if you can kind of get your fingertips on it and get in that gobble opportunity, you can gobble up the ball, but you can also recover to your man if they were to pass it to your man, because again, they're so close, you can guard 2. And then so close you're going to, we'll trap off a lot of ball screens. If they're going to bring a second defender to the ball, we're going to use that to our advantage and try to trap them and rotate out of it. And then if your man's behind the line of the ball, you can trap. And it might be a soft trap until your man gets into scoring range. It might be a hard trap, like on a down pass or a pass up the court and your man's throwing it in. So those are some of the rules to trapping. Again, it's practice and it's a feel, and you've got to do it often.
This goes back to that mentality question for a lot of my players, at least, or one of the most different from what they grew up with is the idea of like five people guarding the basketball.
Hmm.
They think usually like I'm responsible, especially if they're like in help.
Yeah.
That's not really my man until he gets to the rim. Then I better have been in help position. Do you feel like there's an overemphasis on that just simply because of all the if thens that you just said? If they're not paying attention to the ball and their teammate goes to trap and they didn't rotate up one, they're burnt.
Yeah, for sure. We are always saying you got to be ready, which ironically that puts them into great help defensive position,
Mhm.
not because we're working on help side, but because we're working on when and where and how do I rotate. So we always, if the ball's on the strong side and there's three people on the strong side offensively, we want to always play 5-on-3. So we call it on the weak side kind of a strong and a nail. We want to be on that strong kind of towards the strong side block and the nail and that help side I formation and play 5-on-3 because you got to be ready to trap. And what's going to be easier for you is if you cut down your distance to rotate. Well, if you're snugged up on your man and the ball is being trapped and you have to rotate one over, bump a level off, and you're not off to the ball up the line on the line, you're going to have a hard time getting there. And that's when we have a great trap and everyone's like, oh, but we missed the rotation.
Mhm.
And that's where you kind of let your teammates down. So in order not to do that, you're always ready to be towards the ball, head on a swivel, obviously knowing where your man is. But the system kind of allows for that loaded mentality defensively.
Are you doubling the post?
We are same type of mentality, the turn mentality. So when the ball enters the post, we're always trying to look to dig or turn. If you see, if they're spinning one way and you see the back, the weak side's ready to be there on turns. So, and we'll mix it up a little bit. I think we're not going to say every time we're going to double the post. I mean, if they catch and they do a little sigma move and face up, they can see and they're looking on the weak side. You've got to be ready to do both well, have a help side presence, but get out to a skip on a shooter. So it's a feel thing that we just work through practices, and we're not saying one way or the other, but it's definitely something in our arsenal for sure.
I would have to imagine your team's probably a little bit better than the average team at rotating out of post doubles just because you practice rotating everywhere else on the floor.
Yeah, definitely. You have to. And angles on the rotations or where we want to send them if the ball's kicked out and how we want to keep them on a side and not be playing this closeout basketball because they're in skips. So yeah, I think it just naturally fits with what we do. So we use that to our advantage.